12 hours after our son was born, my wife had passed away from complications of the C-section. And then 3 months later, my son had passed away from SIDS.
We're Kickstand Convos. We ride this afternoon. Beautiful sunset. Got James, myself, Neil, Toby on the back. The thing in my life has been sobriety, and I've been very adamant about that lately because alcoholism has been in my family for a while, and it never did me no good, obviously. Grew up an abusive dad because of it. Absent parents, really, and just I didn't want that for my kids, but a lot of us use it for other vices and other reasons. So I think we'll let James talk about his experiences with alcoholism and just all the other things that he used to cope with certain pains. So roll on over to James. And I think I met you at the peak of your phase, height of your pain, I guess.
Maybe so. Probably 2018. Or 2019.
2019. I remember being concerned.
It was 2019 because it's right after I got out of the military, and I moved back home Christmas Eve, actually 2018, and started there at the railroad like that January. So when I was in the military, I was married and got stationed in South Korea after my second deployment. And before I left for South Korea, my wife at the time had found out she was pregnant. About 3 months later, I'd have to come back on leave to the States for the birth of my son, our son. I took leave, flew back to the States for the birth of our son, and it was 12 hours after our son was born. My wife had passed away from complications of the C-section, and then 3 months later, my son had passed away from SIDS. And that was 2017. And when you met me, it was 2 years later.
2 years later when we met.
Anyways, in that time period right there, of course, I would imagine just about anybody would do after losing a wife and a son.
Back to back.
Yeah, 3 months within each other.
You had to go back. You had to go back to South Korea, no, or did you stay?
No. I didn't go back to South Korea because when my wife had died, that's what I started the process of. Was doing a family care plan. So I wasn't going to go back to South Korea. I got a compassionate reassignment back to the United States, and then when I got assigned a unit back in the United States, I immediately started my family care plan paperwork as being a single parent to get out of the military. And then when my son passed away, they still offered me to be able to do a family care plan if I wanted out because of everything. And I decided to stay in.
So what happened after all that?
Not only was it my wife and my son who died within 3 months of each other there, it was 6 months after my son died. My dad was killed in a car wreck. So I lost my wife, my son, and my father all within that span of 9 months, especially after my son had died. Because I guess after my wife died, the depression was there, but at the same time, at least I have my son. The only little bit of justification, I guess, and I got to be here and do my best all for him and everything. When he died, it was really downhill from there because at that point in my life, I was looking at it as, okay, I don't have anything. I don't even have my son anymore. That's when I really kind of went on a deep end there of doing anything to try to fill something, just anything at all. Bad, good, didn't matter. From going to the bars, it was just try to be around people to try to not feel alone, and of course it didn't work. Yeah, there's people here, but you're still alone feeling an adult. To getting in fights at those bars just to try to feel something, to drinking, of course, drinking yourself, trying to suppress feelings, which you know deep down that that's not how it works, but to drug use, casual sex, just anything and everything under the sun to try to find some type of feeling out there, some type of connection in some way. And again, of course, none of it worked at all. It was just kind of
also a way to like forget, like distract yourself from all the pain.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
that's what it was. It's a distraction. It's not a cure. A distraction is what it is.
Yeah,
and that was kind of. It wasn't really even a good distraction, honestly. Hindsight's 20/20, as they say. But if I could have known to tackle those problems head on and get them taken care of, and instead of being headstrong about them, and because my unit had made me go to counseling, like a lot of things, if you're forced to do something, you're not going to give it your all.
No.
Like I always say, like, you can't help them until they want to help themselves. That's the first step. And it is the same with grieving and the situation I was in. And I didn't want the help. That whole thought process of being a man, we just
show
take those feelings,
forget about it.
Yep. Stop them down as far as you can and just keep moving on. That's how you're raised. That's what you're taught growing up the whole time. The military is the same, In the military, we got the same sentiments there, like, pick yourself up by the bootstraps and keep going. You should do that to a certain extent, you gotta.
It's good, yeah.
You gotta be able to be resilient, but at the same time, being a man is knowing when to reach out and accept knowing how to accept the help offered, a lot of the care that's out in the world today, because there's a lot of channels I wish I would have taken advantage of sooner, because I spent the years since then until very recently here, actually, I'd say until probably this year, honestly, until 2025, really, where I kept thinking that I was cursed, where I couldn't let anybody get too close to me because I felt like they were going to die.
And I remember you talking about how, like, back in those days when we first met, like, you just didn't absolutely care at all. Like, you were barely making it to work, and you were just doing whatever you could to find the energy to even go about the day,
You weren't living, you were just existing. And the only thing really even keeping me that far was the thought of, if I, unalive myself, then I'm just that's the only thing keeping that from happening was the thought of, men don't do that. Men are too tough for that stuff, But in the fact of letting family down, and cause there was a lot of rough times there where it was definitely on the table and pretty close. But times of laying in the train tracks, just waiting for the next train. Anyways, what were you gonna say?
I was just saying, looking back, are you glad that you never went through with any of those things?
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure, looking back, it's definitely corny as it may be to say or whatever. It's a permanent solution for a temporary issue.
Yeah.
It may have been, a several-year temporary issue. Partly my own fault for not seeking out the counseling I needed, and the guidance I needed, and as soon as I should have.
Yeah. So you could tell somebody there that may be in that situation right now.
Oh, absolutely. To not look at it and with the blinders on from the past or the future. That makes sense. So not like a tunnel vision on just that single day. Widen up your scope of view to your future and what can be down the road as compared to just looking at today. And because it's really easy to get in those moods where something happens and then it just compounds from there. Like, one thing bad happens, then you're in that mindset to look out for all the bad in that whole day. It's a pattern I've noticed with myself, even still. It's like the other day, right? I forgot what happened before I went to go meet you there at the gas station, to go for a ride. But things were happening already. It could be little stuff too. Like you get on the motorcycle and everything, you go to put your gloves on, you drop a glove, you got to bend down, pick that up, and then you get ready to take off and you realize your chin strap's undone, so you got to take your gloves back off, put your chin strap back on, and then you drop the glove again, and it just keeps compounding on top of itself. And then you go jump on the road, some guy cuts you off, and then he tries to run you over at a stop sign, and just kind of compounds, and then you just start looking for more and more, and you get a little more agitated, so you may even push the situation further than where it needed to be in the first place. You come up against something like that, so it just negative tends to compound negative, and I think you got to really break that cycle early on when you notice that stuff happening. Take a minute, sit back, breathe, remind yourself it's just one instance, and then don't let that affect the rest of your day. That's what I'm trying to work on nowadays, even more, I'm just trying to get away from that compounded mindset with the negative.
Yeah. Reacting to the negatives, yeah. They're just trying to provoke that negative out of you. They're miserable, so they're trying to make you miserable, kind of thing.
Absolutely.
That's what I see it sometimes, or most of the time.
As far as vices and everything, I've used tobacco when I was a teenager. Chew, always dipping. That's really the only vice I'd had from then. But when I lost my wife, my son, and my dad all there in a short period of time, that's when other vices started rearing their head out. That's where the meaningless, casual sex came along, just looking for, any type of connection at all there, once again. And then to the actually going out and drinking at clubs and stuff try to be around people and really chasing those connections, trying to find where to be at there, Tobacco use definitely picked up at that time, for sure. At the time, I didn't notice any uptick in things like that. I thought I was just living and being a young kid and
having fun and...
Oh yeah, let's send it. That's what I always looked at it.
Fresh gravel or fresh pavement, I'm sorry.
Oh yeah. But I always looked at it like that, I'm not doing anything crazy. I'm just going to the club and having, 3, 4, 7 beers with my buddies from my unit. We're just out here hanging out.
10 shots,
and these, those guys over there, they were starting crap with us. So, no, realistically, looking back now, we were looking for that,
Yeah.
They go out and do that, and we were looking for that stuff, and I can't speak on their behalf, but now in hindsight, I know that the reason why I was looking for that was just anything. I was getting reckless, just stupid stuff that has permanent consequences.
Most definitely.
And that was all all the vices I jumped into to try to cover up the pain and the hurt. Which, I'm glad for the motorcycle because, as I said earlier, this is, I tell everybody that, when I had my wreck back in April, I guess a little backstory, I wrecked at around 75, 80 miles per hour on Easter of this year, Easter night. And I spent 22 days in the hospital. I broke my right femur and my right radius. And now I have some permanent nerve damage in my right foot, so I have foot drop in my right arm. I can't exactly get full motion back on it yet. But anyways, when I had that wreck, everybody in the hospital any nurse that came in, because, you know, you spend 22 days in the hospital. I went through probably 2 handfuls of nurses, you know, and CNA, even more CNAs. And that whole time, every single one asked me if I was planning on getting back on a motorcycle. No question about it, no thinking about it. It's absolutely, if I can physically ride, I will be getting on one, and if I can't, it'll be 3 wheels. Because when I went through all that loss in my life before, I didn't feel really alive or anything unless I was on the motorcycle. That's probably cheesy as all get out, but out riding around, and just it allowed me to actually process my thoughts better. My problem was, once I got home, those processed thoughts just went right out the window. But it did let me actually process them and work through them in my own head and just go about it that way. So that's why I've always said motorcycles saved my life. They tried to kill me, you know, now, but still saved my life. That's why, you know, 2 coming up on 3 months later, I'm still back on one. So, but I know that's some of the vices I've dealt with, and I say the way that I've worked through them myself is by, one, the motorcycle, like a hobby, I guess. That's what you say in general, a good hobby that is non-detrimental to your well-being and health. Yeah, motorcycles can be dangerous, I understand that, but so can walking on the sidewalk and driving your car. But a good hobby that's not going out to the club and drinking every weekend and, yeah, going to find strippers every weekend and casual sex, things that can then lead to life-ending diseases, and I think that, as well as actually being able to finally accept the help that is on the table to get me to where I can recognize these things in life, rather than, you know, sitting there and going, oh, I feel this way, but I don't know why. Yep. I'm mad. I'm just gonna go drink.
Yep, I'm broken. Something's wrong with me. I'm a bad person.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, oh, you're weak. I'm weak, so I might as well just go drink.
You're not a man.
I feel like when people come from those upbringings, they either get far away from it or recycle the process.
Yeah.
And as what, you know, my father was an alcoholic when I was a little kid, and into my teenage years too, I guess, actually. You know, his uncles, his cousins, so everybody that I hung out with there, that before joining the military, that's what they were. And then, you know, join the military, and it's the same culture in the military also. Like, yep, alcohol, casual sex. Different family, same culture. And like we talked about several times, it's extremely hard to find friends when you're not in that culture as an adult man.
Especially these days and times, man. I could just, you tell people that you're sober, you haven't drank in 3 years, they look at you like, are you okay? Like,
oh yeah,
around you.
It just seems to be
a life choice.